Hey everyone, welcome back. You know those everyday conversations that pop up everywhere? Yeah, we're talking about small talk. We're gonna really deep dive into it.
Yeah, it's something we all kind of encounter, right? Like it's everywhere.
Seriously. Whether you're a native English speaker or, still learning the ropes, it can be a little
Tricky.
tricky. Yeah. And you know what? It's totally okay to feel that way.
Definitely. And honestly, that's kind of why we're here, right?
Exactly. We're not trying to, make you like some super smooth talker.
Oh, yeah. No, not at all.
But we do want to give you like some practical tips and phrases to feel a bit more confident.
Absolutely. Like just navigate those, quick chats you have throughout the day.
Especially when you're learning English, it adds like another layer of complexity.
Right. And it's funny because small talk gets a bad rap sometimes, like it's just fluffy chit
I
chat.
can see that.
But I think it's important to remember that it's kind of like the first step.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, think of it this way. It's like the warm-up act before the main concert.
Okay, I like that. Sets the stage.
Exactly. It helps you break ice, find some common ground.
It's like dipping your toes in the water before you jump into the pool.
Yeah, a perfect analogy.
And one of the things that really stood out to me from like all the research we did was this idea of open-ended questions.
Oh, yeah, those are key.
The kind that can't just be answered with a yes or a no.
Exactly. You want to get people talking.
Right. Like instead of saying, did you enjoy the party? You could ask, what was the best part of the party for you?
Much better. It invites them to share more.
It's like you're giving them an invitation to actually have a conversation.
Right. You're not just, grilling them with questions.
No, you're creating space for them to open up.
Exactly. And that's how you really get a conversation flowing.
So true. Now, what about those classic small talk topics? I know a lot of English learners find those a bit daunting.
Oh, definitely. But they are often quite predictable.
Yeah, you kind of know what to expect.
Right. It's almost like they're like conversational building blocks?
Okay, I like that. Building blocks. So what are some of these blocks?
Well, you've got the weather, you've got work hobbies, travel, food.
Those are pretty universal, I guess.
Right. These are topics that most people generally feel comfortable chatting about.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's like break down a few of those, shall we?
Sure.
Weather, always a safe bet, right?
Sure, but you might want to try and make it a little more interesting than just, nice weather today.
Okay, so how do you spice it up?
Well, you could say something like, this sunshine is making me want to go for a walk. Do you enjoy being outdoors?
Oh, I like that. It's like you're inviting them to share a bit about themselves, too.
Exactly. You're making it a conversation.
So it's not just about commenting on the weather. It's about connecting.
Precisely.
Now, speaking of shared experiences, location can be a great starting point, too, right?
Oh, absolutely. You're both in the same place.
So there's already like a built-in connection.
Exactly. Like, imagine you're at a cafe. You could say to the person next to you, is this your usual spot? I'm trying to find a new place to work from.
Oh, that's so much better than you come here often.
Way more engaging.
Plus, you might even get a good recommendation out of it.
Right. You never know.
Now, work can be a bit trickier, right?
It can be, yeah, especially if there's like a language barrier.
Yeah, you might not understand all the jargon.
True, but even if you don't understand every single detail, you can still show interest.
Like how?
You could ask what's the most interesting part of your work. Or if they seem a bit stressed, you could try, it sounds like you have a lot on your plate. Do you find time to switch off after work?
Oh, that's a great way to show like empathy and build a connection, even if you're not fluent in, corporate speak.
Right, it's about finding those human connection points.
I love that. Now let's move on to something a little lighter, hobbies.
Oh, hobbies are great.
Yeah, everyone's got something they're passionate about.
Exactly, and it's a fantastic way to find common ground.
So, like, what are some ways to bring up hobbies in conversation?
Well, you could say something like, I've been trying to learn to play the guitar. Do you play any instruments? Or, that's a cool phone case. Are you into photography?
Oh, I do that all the time. I love admiring people's phone cases. It's such a fun conversation starter.
It is. And even if you don't share the same hobby, you can still learn something new.
Like what?
You could say, I've always wanted to try rock climbing. What's it like?
Okay, I'm totally getting the hang of this. It's all about asking open-ended questions, finding those connection points, and just being curious.
You got it.
But what about those times where you just feel awkward? Like you totally blank on what to say?
That's completely normal. Small talk doesn't come naturally to everyone.
It's true.
But here's the thing. It's not really about finding the perfect words. It's about showing genuine interest.
So even if I like stumble over my words a bit, as long as I come across as sincere and like actually interested in the other person, that's a win.
Exactly. People can tell when you're genuinely engaged, even if you make a few grammatical mistakes.
Phew. That takes the pressure off.
And sometimes those little slip-ups can actually make you more endearing.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, so let's talk travel. It's such a rich topic for conversation, but it can also feel like everyone's been everywhere.
True. But you can still find unique angles.
Like how?
Instead of asking, have you been to... If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go and why?
Oh, I love that. It gets them to share their dreams.
Right. It tells you a lot about a person.
You can kind of peek into their soul a little bit.
Exactly. Or you could say something like, I'm planning a trip too. Have you ever been there? Do you have any recommendations?
Oh, I see. I'm already getting better at this. It's about digging a little deeper, asking those why and how questions.
Exactly. You're sparking a more meaningful exchange.
And of course, don't forget to share your own travel experiences too.
Yes. It's a two-way street.
Right. Reciprocity. Like a conversational dance?
I like that.
Okay, I'm saving the best for last, food.
Ah, yes.
Who doesn't love talking about food?
It's the universal language.
Seriously. And there are so many ways to approach it.
Right?
You could ask, what's your favorite comfort food? Or is there a dish you've always wanted to try?
Those are great.
Oh, and you know what else I love to ask is, I've never tried before. What does it taste like?
Oh, that's a good one. Food is such a great way to connect with different cultures.
It really is. And if you're feeling brave, you could even invite them to try something new.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know a great place that serves. Would you be interested in checking it out sometime?
Now that's taking small talk to the next level.
It is. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about the power of open-ended questions, explored some classic small talk topics, and even sprinkled in some, advanced moves.
And I think the key takeaway here is that small talk is a skill you can develop with practice.
Like anything else.
Exactly. It's about finding your own style, being authentic, and most importantly, having fun with it.
It shouldn't feel like a chore.
No, it should be enjoyable.
Absolutely. So we've talked a lot about the words we use in small talk, but what about our body language?
Oh, that's huge. You know what's fascinating to me is that communication is so much more than just the words we say.
Yeah, our body language could totally change the meaning of what we're saying.
Exactly. Especially in those first few moments of an interaction.
So look, what are some of the key things to keep in mind when it comes to body language?
Well, first and foremost, eye contact.
Okay.
It shows you're engaged, you're interested in what the other person is saying.
But not in a creepy way, right?
Definitely not. Think of it more as a warm and welcoming gaze.
Okay. Yeah, not a stare down.
Right. A few seconds of eye contact is usually enough.
Got it. What else?
Smiling. That's another powerful tool.
Oh, yeah. A smile can go a long way.
Seriously. It makes you more approachable, more likable.
But what if I'm feeling nervous or awkward? Can people tell if my smile is fake?
You know, it's true. A forced smile can sometimes come across as insincere, but it's amazing how often simply thinking about something positive can naturally bring a smile to your face.
Like what?
You know, think about a funny memory or something you're looking forward to.
Oh, that's a good tip. I'm going to try that. Anything else on the body language front?
Well, posture is important too.
Okay.
Standing or sitting up straight, conveys confidence, openness.
You don't want to be all hunched over.
Exactly. It can make you look closed off or like you're trying to hide.
And it probably makes it harder for them to hear you, too.
Right. So good posture is good for everyone involved.
Okay, I'm making a mental note to stand up straight. Now, what about those awkward silences? They're bound to happen, right?
Oh, absolutely. Silences are a natural part of any conversation, even for native English speakers.
So we shouldn't freak out if there's a pause.
No, not at all. Sometimes a little silence is good. It gives you both a chance to gather your thoughts.
Okay, but what if the silence starts to feel a bit uncomfortable?
You could try acknowledging it in a lighthearted way, like say, give me a second, my brain's just catching up, or I'm trying to think the best way to put this into words.
Oh, I like that. It takes the pressure off.
Right. It shows you're self-aware and not taking yourself too seriously.
And it kind of invites the other person to jump in and keep things going.
Exactly. Remember, small talk is a two-way street.
So true. Now, speaking of keeping the conversation going, I know one of our sources talked about the importance of finding like hooks or threads to connect with.
Oh, yeah. That's a great way to think about it.
But what does that actually look like in practice?
It's about actively listening to what the other person is saying and looking for those opportunities to build on their comments.
Oh, okay.
Like if someone mentions they love hiking, you could ask, what's your favorite hiking trail around here? Or if they say they're feeling stressed about work you could offer, I find yoga really helps me unwind. Have you ever tried it?
Oh, I see. It's like you're building a bridge from their comment to something you can connect with.
Exactly, and it shows you're genuinely interested in what they have to say.
Which is always a good thing. Now, I know a lot of English learners worry about making mistakes,
Of course.
especially with grammar or pronunciation.
It's understandable.
Any advice for people who are struggling with that fear?
Well, first of all, remember that everyone makes mistakes, even native speakers.
Yeah, that's true.
The important thing is to not let that fear hold you back from speaking.
Easier said than done sometimes.
I know, but the more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
So it's better to say something imperfectly than to say nothing at all.
Exactly. And most people are more focused on the content of your message than on your perfect grammar.
Yeah, as long as you're clear and engaging, a few slip-ups here and there won't matter.
Exactly. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Okay, that's good to know. Now let's talk about compliments.
Oh, compliments are great.
They're a good way to break the ice, but I know some people feel awkward giving or receiving them.
I can see that.
It's true that compliments can sometimes feel a bit forced or insincere.
Yeah, you want to make sure they're genuine.
So how do we make sure our compliments come across as authentic?
Be specific. Instead of just saying nice shoes, you could say, those shoes look so comfortable. I love the color.
Oh, okay, so it's about finding something you genuinely appreciate and expressing it.
Right. Make it personal.
But what if I don't actually like their shoes? Should I still compliment them?
That's a great question. You don't have to compliment something you don't genuinely like.
Okay, good.
You could focus on something else, like their hair or their energy. Like,
All right.
you have such a great smile, it brightens up the room.
That's a good point. It's about finding something positive to comment on without feeling like you have to be fake.
Exactly.
Now, I know some cultures are more reserved than others when it comes to personal space.
That's true.
Any tips on navigating that in English-speaking contexts?
Well, generally speaking, people in English-speaking cultures tend to prefer a bit more personal space than in some other cultures.
So no back-patting or like standing too close?
Yeah, it's probably best to err on the side of caution.
Okay.
A good rule of thumb is to maintain an arm's length distance when you're talking to someone you don't know well.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Now let's talk about humor.
Oh, humor, that's tricky.
Yeah, I know a lot of English learners are hesitant to make jokes.
Understandably so.
They're afraid of not being understood or even worse, offending someone.
It's true. Humor can be tricky, especially across cultures.
What's funny in one culture might not be funny in another.
Exactly. So it's important to be mindful of your audience and the context.
So is it best to just avoid humor altogether?
Not necessarily, but, self-deprecating humor can be a good option.
Oh, yeah, like making fun of yourself.
Exactly. It's generally less likely to offend.
That's a good tip. I actually struggle with humor in English.
It can be tough. One tip is to pay attention to how native English speakers use humor.
Oh, like observe them.
Exactly. Notice the timing, the tone of voice, the facial expression.
Learn by osmosis.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to experiment a little.
Okay.
If a joke doesn't land, just laugh it off and move on.
No harm, no foul.
Exactly. It's all about being playful.
I like that. Now, what about those times when you need to politely exit a conversation?
Oh, yeah, you don't want to trap someone.
Exactly. What are some graceful ways to do that?
You could say something like, it was nice talking to you, but I need to run. I have a meeting in a few minutes, or I don't want to keep you. I'm sure you have other people to chat with.
Those are good. And if you want to leave the door open for a future conversation, you could add something like, I'd love to hear more about topics sometime. Maybe we can chat again soon.
That's a great way to signal that you enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, like you're open to connecting again.
Exactly.
Now, we've talked about a lot of specific techniques, but I think it's important to remember that The most important thing is to relax and be yourself.
Couldn't agree more. Authenticity trumps perfection every time.
Small talk should be enjoyable, not a chore.
And remember, it's a skill that improves with practice.
Practice makes perfect.
The more you put yourself out there, the more confident and comfortable you'll become.
I'm feeling inspired. I'm ready to go out there and practice my new small talk superpowers.
That's the spirit. And remember, every interaction is an opportunity to connect with someone new and learn something interesting.
Even if it's just about the weather or their favorite coffee shop.
Exactly.
It's so true. Like, you don't have to be perfect at it to, enjoy it and connect with people.
Exactly. And as we were talking about all these tips and techniques, I realized something.
Oh, what's that?
A lot of these principles apply to conversations in any language, not just English.
You're so right. It's like being a good listener, showing genuine interest, finding common ground.
Mm-hmm.
Those are universal communication skills.
Absolutely.
It's like we've unlocked a secret code for connecting with people in general.
I love that. A secret code.
And that's what makes it so powerful, right?
Totally.
Small talk is often seen as superficial, but
it can actually be a gateway to deeper connections, meaningful relationships.
So it's not just about chit-chat. It's about building bridges.
Exactly.
Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay.
The fear of making mistakes.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
I know it's a huge hurdle for a lot of English learners.
It's understandable, though.
It is, but, mistakes are inevitable.
They really are, even for native speakers.
And in many cases, they're not as big a deal as we make them out to be.
We tend to overthink it.
We do. So it's about shifting our perspective, right?
Absolutely.
Instead of seeing mistakes as failures, we can view them as opportunities to learn and grow.
Love that.
And remember, most people are more interested in what you have to say than in your perfect grammar or pronunciation.
So true.
So don't let the fear of making mistakes hold you back from connecting with others.
Seriously. Just go for it.
Now I want to end this deep dive with a challenge for our listeners.
Oh, a challenge. I love it.
I challenge you to strike up a conversation with someone new this week.
Okay.
Using some of the tips and techniques we've discussed.
Love it.
It could be a classmate, a colleague, or even just someone you bump into at the coffee shop.
It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Exactly. Just a few friendly exchanges can make a big difference.
And who knows what might come of it.
It could lead to a new friendship or a surprising discovery.
You never know until you try.
So go out there, practice your new small talk skills, and embrace the power of human connection. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And remember, we're here to support you on your English learning journey every step of the way.
Absolutely. Happy chatting, everyone.